his colleagues that have just gotten back from Ukraine, and this is the speech that he made, folks. So it is people just like this gentleman right here that's going to get us into World War III. The bellicose rhetoric coming from our U.S. congressmen, that they don't realize, folks, that if Russia is provoked into a world war, then hundreds of millions of people will die across the world. And it is people just like this gentleman and this guy over here, I guess he's a congressman, that will provoke World War III with Russia. And this is the reason that we have the situation ongoing right now. We have people that are so arrogant in our government that think that we can never be defeated, that our country is the biggest and baddest in the world. And Russia is not a third world country. Russia is a major world power with over 6,000 nuclear weapons and the military equipment to deliver those weapons on our shore and on our country. So let's listen to Senator Rob Portman threaten Russia. Once again, that's all that we have coming out from our government is threats against Russia. Russia had presented a detailed list of their demands, hopefully trying to work out a diplomatic solution with NATO and the United States. And NATO and the United States has told Russia a flat no, we're not going to give you any of your demands, zero of your demands, what you want to protect your national security. So this continues, and the information I'm about to provide with you in the next few minutes is showing you that we are definitely going into a major war with Russia. Russia is preparing right now for World War III. This really has nothing to do with Ukraine. This is about stopping NATO and the United States from attacking them and threatening their national security. And I'm going to bring you all that information. So let's go ahead and listen to Senator Rob Portman once again threatening Russia.
We just got back last night from a congressional delegation trip to Ukraine. It was bipartisan, led by Senator Jean Shaheen and myself. Senator Wicker, Senator Kramer were part of that congressional delegation. And this morning we were able to attend a secure briefing by the president and his team. Let me echo some of the concerns that have been raised by my colleagues. We need to stand strong and unified in letting Vladimir Putin and Russia know that should there be another physical invasion of Ukraine, that the consequences will be devastating for Russia, both in terms of sanctions. We talked about Nord Stream 2 earlier. Nord Stream 2 is a bad idea. It's an even worse idea now that Russia has mobilized this massive, unwarranted force along the border of Ukraine. But the other sanctions that must be discussed publicly and made clear would go much further than just sanctioning Nord Stream 2, which of course has to happen. We also need to let Russia know that we are going to provide additional military, defensive, lethal weapons to Ukraine. Already we are doing that, and I was pleased to see as we left Ukraine yesterday that the C-17 landed. It was from the UK, one of our strong allies, and it had within it anti-tank weapons that Ukraine badly needs to be able to respond should Russia and Vladimir Putin make a terrible mistake. But we need to continue that, and should there be an additional invasion, we need to let the world know that there will be substantially more of those kinds of military weapons and assistance provided to Ukraine, as well as additional buildup of NATO forces in other Eastern European countries, and a commitment, an ironclad commitment, that the free world, not just the United States, not just NATO, but the free world will stand strong. That is the kind of deterrence that's needed right now to avoid what would be a terrible consequence for Ukraine, but also destabilizing Europe and sending a signal that somehow, after the first territorial incursion since World War II, that the countries of the free world are not going to stand together strongly against what Russia is doing. I believe what we saw in our Codel, what we heard this morning, was a very strong message, a message of unity. We need to be sure that our actions back up our words.
Okay.
Lawan, This is Har 1 by Yasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp. When say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Harakar Kodash, Ma'amaf. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and their elders, and Shalom to you, Akim, Nagwati, my children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. We got more posturing going on with NATO and Russia, right? Let me get this real quick. All right, so you got NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and they're pressing America, which is Babylon in the scriptures. They're pressing America to go to war against Russia, all right, or to poke the bear to get them roused up, get them mad, all right, get them in a stance to fight, get them to begin posturing their military for war. Now we've entered something called the new Cuban Missile Crisis. But I want to read this real quick, Matthew 24:6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. All right, so we're hearing about wars, and we're hearing about rumors of wars, but the end is not yet. What's the end? When they push that, the MOTB, and after that, this word is going to be pushed throughout the four corners of the earth. It's going to reach all the elect. And he said, after that, then shall the end come. All right. It says, for nation shall rise against nation. So you're going to have proxy wars. You're going to have regional wars. But when World War III kick off, it's going to be a nuclear war. All right. No more proxies, no more Cold War. It's going to be straight on with the superpowers, Russia and America. All right. It's according to Ezekiel 38. The Lord said, let me get that too as well. Putin or Russia going to think an evil thought, and they're going to go up to the land of unwalled villages. All right. This is, it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and that's what we're seeing. It's the Lord stirring up the fire, kindling the fire. Kingdom against kingdom, okay? And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And all this is happening upon the earth right now. All these are the beginning of sorrows, man. Okay? So, yeah, it's just the beginning of it. It's going to get worse. Now, at this point, they have, what you call that, a bunch of troops dealing with Russia, sending them to the borders of Ukraine. And you have NATO and America and their allies setting up missiles all around the borders of Russia, almost 10 minutes away. And now they're moving in for 5 minutes. And Putin said, soon it'll be zero. They just be able to drop something, blow something up. So Putin's in a position where they have to respond. Now, what's going on is basically NATO creating a reason to exist. Because after World War II, in the Cuban Missile Crisis, or the Cold War, right, which was basically from like 1947 to about 1991, all right, because that's when the Soviet Union fell. Once the Soviet Union fell, there was no need for NATO. NATO was set up as a war machine to deter Russia, the bear. All right, that's why I said, who can make war with the beast? That's the beast of the scriptures. So after after Russia fell, Soviet Union, 1991, all right, there was a Cold War from 1947. I think it was the Truman Agreement. And then you had in 1991, you had the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, what was that? In 1962, that was like the major climax of that Cold War. It was 1962 was the Cuban Missile Crisis. all right, where you had the same situation going on, posturing. You had America setting up missiles and arming Turkey and Italy. And through that, you had Russia. They was like, oh shit, okay, you don't do that? Well, we're going to set up missiles in Cuba that could reach all of America. Now they have a different situation. They don't need Cuba, which they can use Cuba again, but they don't need Cuba. They got submarines, they got planes, they got aircraft carriers, they got satellites. All right, they got invincible missiles that can travel around the whole damn Earth 2 times over because it's nuclear empowered. They got submarines that can stay under the waters all year round and not come up, just like Germany had to do in World War One. That's what made them lose the war. They were called cash cows. Every time the Navy that was built by Kaiser Wilhelm in World War One, spoken of in Revelation 9, every time the Navy ships would come out of the water or the submarines to refill, they had to have a caddy next to it to fill it up, just like the planes do in the air. They have fueling planes, so they had fueling ships or submarines for the German Navy. And next thing you know, every time they come up, they had something called, what was that? I forgot the name, the Red Bomber or something. I could be wrong about that, but they had something called the Peekaboo bombers, man. And every time them cash cows would come up to refuel, they would just drop them, boom, destroying their navy. And that's what made Germany lose the war, ultimately. World War One. And then you had Hitler. He was a general in the army, and they raised him up. So now, after World War II, Russia was a major player in World War One, and also in World War II. You know, they kind of played both sides with Germany. You know, and America took the forefront, became the spearhead for NATO and the spokesperson for NATO, and dropped the missiles. And they have the president or the leader general of NATO has to be an American soldier. All right, so that's the horror riding upon the scarlet colored beast. All right, so now let's get into this real quick, and I'm gonna give you more understanding on that. Yahweh Ratazah. So you got Russia and America posturing for war, mainly NATO, because NATO is looking for a reason to exist as an entity. You know, because basically the dragon is European Union countries that came together and formed what you would call NATO, which would be a deterrent against Russia and China, all right, who they call the enemies. All right, so you have America, America, Europe, and those European countries, which established NATO as the beast, a system for war. But there was no war to fight. So now they're creating one. They had to create fear. Literally, they're using fear as a go-ahead to reestablish NATO on the world scene. All right, so they're posturing up against Russia. That way you don't really hear any threats coming from Russia, but you hear threats coming from NATO and America. It's a bunch of threats. Everything they say is all threats. Why? So they can, they're creating an enemy. All right, it's called demonization. All right, so without that, NATO would be null and void. So now they're bringing NATO, the beast, back on the scene, man. Ever since World War II, ever since the fall of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War. All right, now it's 2016, you had Gorbachev come out and say, hey, man, the Soviet Union is back. Ever since the Brexit, right, with the EU. Okay, the fall of the Soviet Union helped to establish the EU, you know, strengthen it and their allies. The the breakup, according to Daniel chapter 2, of the EU helped to release Russia, man, brought them back from the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, ever since, Russia has been doing something called land grabs with China, taking over certain areas. And that's all according to prophecy, the Most High controlling. Psalms 55, now you have these generals from America going over there to Ukraine, meeting up and watching and meeting up with Soviet Union generals, NATO generals, Ukraine generals. And they show back up on the media and they just talking trash, man, saying they're going to do this to Russia, they're going to do that. And they're gonna arm Ukraine with missiles. Russia like, yo, what are y'all doing? So no, I'm big dog. Russia's big dog right now, man. All right, Psalm 55, 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter. That's what we call politicians. All right. So their words are trained to be smoother than butter. But that's Esau. But war was in his heart. See, they all setting up for war. Because war brings what? Power and money. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords, man. All right, and Putin knows that about his own people, about Esau. They're like, yo, we're not going to wait until you get to 5 minutes away. You're already 10 minutes away. So we're not going to wait for America to make up their mind, or NATO. Next thing you know, NATO or American, what you would call politicians, they're on TV like, yeah, well, Russia need to make up their mind. They better not cross that. Yeah, America's not in any position to go to war with Russia right now. And they know it. This is all set up to destroy America. All right. All right. This is Revelation 17, 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. All right. And that's what the melting pot called America. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast. All right. The 10 horns represent the rulers of the beast. All right. NATO, which would be the EU, European Union. All right. The original economic community. European Economic Community, that was originally the 10 common markets. All right. And the European Economic Community established the EU, the European Union, or they established the EU so that they wouldn't go to war, right, within themselves. All right. And instead of establishing their own army for the European Union, which was another conglomerate or system that they created, the dragon. Anyway, man, once the dragon was established, they established the EU that kept all those European countries from going to war. All right. And instead of creating their own army, they created something called NATO. And they helped to establish America and used America, or helped give power to America in the world. All right. And used America as their hammer and their deterrent from Russia. But now, Revelation 17 and 16, they're drawing America into this war. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. All right, so they're going to lead America into this war. For Yahweh have put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the word, and give their kingdom unto the words of Yahweh shall be fulfilled. I give their kingdom unto the beast, my bad. Until the words of Yahweh shall be fulfilled. All right. So they gave their power and their resources over to NATO and America. So now let's get this real quick. Let's go to 13. This is Revelations 13:1. This is the establishment of NATO and the fall of it, all right, which will be through Russia. And I stood upon the sands of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the earth, all right? And that beast represents NATO, all right? It's not a country. It's just a conglomerate that came, a corporation of people that came together and rose up from amongst the people. Having 7 heads and 10 horns, all right? 7 heads and 10 horns, okay? 10 horns representing the 10 common markers of Europe, okay? And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. That lets you know who the rulers are, which would be them 10 crowns represent the European Union. All right. And the beast which I saw, and eventually morphed into what you would call the Western European Union. All right. Now you had the European Union, which was established around 1957. All right. And then you have the Western European Union, which was established like 1959, going into the 1960s, where they connected their resources to America. All right, they're called the Western European Union, and their allied nations wound up being 7 and 10. You can look it up, man. Look up the Western European Union, and you'll see the ones that agreed to NATO, America, are the 7 countries and 10. All right, but originally it was the 10 common markets either way. So verse 2. So that was the establishment of the European Union and also NATO. All right, them creating NATO. All right, NATO was really established 1948, 1949, I think. All right, so it was like 1948 to 1952 in D.C. They set up the NATO connection with the military. All right, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So all this was established right after World War II. All right, and they were already posturing against Russia. Excuse me. So now the power is being stripped away from America, from the war, and it's being handed over to China. And the new muscle, the new hammer of the earth would be Russia, all right, because of their military. So now, verse 2, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. So it's just like the original Greek Empire. You know, who was able to make war with the beast? When Alexander came into power, right, 336 BC, right, nobody could make war with him. I think he was born in 352 in Pella, Greece. But you know, in 336, he started ruling over Greece. All right. Excuse me. So and when he ruled over Greece, let me just go ahead and get it if I can. When he ruled over Greece, he put fear in everybody, and nobody was able to make war with him. This is First Maccabees 1:1, and it happened that after Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. All right, and that really happened when he ruled over the Persians. From 334, you had an invasion from the Greeks against the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, against Darius III. and the Greeks toppled the Persian Empire in 330 BC. All right. So he really started ruling over Greece in 333, if you really want to look at it. But yeah. So now, and he made what? Made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. And that's what NATO did. NATO was set up for that. I think it was a bombing in Serbia as well. They was dropping missiles, man. And NATO is a war machine, just like Greece was set up, or Alexander. All right, and they still look to Alexander for war motivation. Okay, and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations. Didn't NATO do that with America as well? The NATO army. Look what they did over there in Libya. Okay, I got this book called the Green Book. I don't know where it's at right now, but I got a book called the Green Book. It was written by Muammar Gaddafi. And in that, he tells everything. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and pause this, man. Get this. Hey, man, you start teaching and cold creep up in here. You gotta cut the heat on. So that's what NATO did. They went to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, just like Alexander and the Greeks, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. Didn't that happen with America? Didn't that happen with NATO? All right. So their heart was lifted up through that as well. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. You see that? And that's what happened with NATO in America. They made all the nations become tributaries unto him. All right. So Ezekiel 28 and 3. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. Talking about Esau. All right. They've searched out everything. So and they have all these. That's what they after. The privacy, man. Steal all your personal information. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. By thy great wisdom and by thy traffic, by thy business, hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh power, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of God. All right, so yeah, man. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they will draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. So the Lord gonna bring all these nations against this place, America. So America's been lifted up, and NATO's been lifted up because of their riches that they've gotten. All right. So all right. So that's how they got rich. They went to war with the whole world. They went to war with everybody, and also a geopolitical war. All right. To where they go to war with each other through the politics, demonization, economic. The dollar is basically a war tactic. Sirach 10 and 7. Pride is hateful before Yahweh and man. So the Lord hates Esau. And by both doeth one commit iniquity. Because of unrighteousness, because of unrighteous dealings. See, this is how they got all their riches. This is how they took over the world. Just like the Greeks and Alexander. Through unrighteous dealings, injuries, see, that's war, and riches gotten by deceit. Man. All right, so they got them riches through their business. Their business is based upon deceit. All right, that's their wine of their fornication. The kingdom is translated from one people to another. All right, so yeah, man, they took over the world. So now I'm gonna get back to Revelations 13. They took over the world with their deceitfulness. And the word deceit goes back to what? Deceiver. It goes back to what? The devil. Revelation 13 and 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. So this was NATO being established to take over the world. All right, according to prophecy. The Lord said that to Esau, that they were going to rule with the sword. And his feet were as the feet of a bear. All right, so the end of that system started with the Greeks, Alexander. All right, Alexander's father's Philip, the Macedonian. Then it's going to end with who? The bear, Russia. That's their symbol. That's what they're known for, being the bear. Even according to their war tactics, as far as attacking and then acting like they're not going to attack and returning and destroying like a bear would do, and also hibernating. All right, and yeah. So, and the word bear goes back to being equipped or enough. They're enough to defeat NATO and America. The Most High set them up that way. The Lord said He created the smith that blew up the coals in the fire, and He brought forth a weapon for His indignation, which is going to be what? The waster to destroy. And Revelation 9 tell you it's going to be 200 million missiles. Ezekiel 38 tell you that they're going to be fully AI technology, basically, man. They're going to be controlled. All the nations going to join up with Russia, and Russia's going to be a guard unto them and equip them and train their soldiers. All their soldiers are going to all be equipped and trained for this war. And his mouth was as the mouth of a lion. All right, so that's the establishment of NATO. And you had who? Britain, with the mouth of the lion, which they became the mouthpiece for NATO. But then they set up America as the mouthpiece. All right. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So from Europe, NATO got his power and seat and great authority. It didn't get his seat and great authority from America, from anywhere else. The Most High set it up that way, but he had it go through Europe. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, man. Okay, so NATO, all right, and the deadly wound that was healed was basically the Roman Empire being reestablished. You know, especially with the Treaty of Rome in around 1957. You know, how about to say AD? Around 1957. Still AD though, you know. Yeah, so they're wounded, and they're really in the 1st century BC, and also going into the 410 1st century AD, and also going into what's that called, man? 410 AD, which would be the fall of the Western Roman Empire. All right, going into the Byzantine Empire. All right, but that old Roman revisement really happened with the establishment of the Treaty of Rome and America. All right, creating a dragon. Now it says, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. All right, so they all submitted to Europe, and they get all their commands from Europe. That's why you see things happen over there first, and then it'll happen here, you know, as far as their politics. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, so everybody submitted to the beast, to NATO, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him, man? So who's able to make war with all these countries that's united called NATO? All right, that's set up to go to war with Russia or China. So nobody can make war with NATO. But now, see, that lets you know that NATO was set up for what? War. And there was no war to fight. So that's why they're going over to the Middle East, taking land, taking oil and resources and killing people. Now they're messing with Russia on their doorstep with missiles just so they can get Russia to respond as they're doing. All right. And that's going to help NATO be back on the scene again. All right. So let's get, I'm going to go to maybe 18. That's 19, I think. Here you go. This is Revelation 19. Okay, because this is about to happen. Matter of fact, let me get Ezekiel 38. Just real quick, man. This is Ezekiel 38 and 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, basically the Kremlin or Russia, all right? The land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against them, basically all of Eastern Eurasia, which would be the Soviet Union, all right? So they're the chief prince of that area. And they want those lands back. They want to rebuild the Soviet Union since 1991, all right? And say, thus saith Yahweh the power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog. Even though the Lord is raising up Russia, the Lord is still against them as Edomites. The chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, or the chief prince of that area over there in Eastern Eurasia. It's basically Eastern Eurasia against Western Eurasia. That way they have something called the Iron Curtain. It's back up again. It's like a line being drawn straight through Europe. They call it the Iron Curtain. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. Basically, Yahweh Shai is going to take control of them. Right? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And turn them back into that old Soviet Union mindset. And by doing so, they need those lands back. They need Ukraine back. All right? You know, Ukraine never really joined NATO, but they became sovereign and had their own rights away from Russia. But now Russia like, yo, no, you part of us. And you better not join NATO. And that's what they want in writing. They wanted in writing that Ukraine is not going to join NATO. And NATO wants them to join. It just is what it is. But I don't think they're going to do it because Ukraine's so afraid of Russia. All right, so now they're trying to divide Ukraine and strengthen Ukraine with missiles and missile defenses to go against Russia. You know? So I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, technology, and weaponry, right? Even a great company with bucklers and shields. Man, defenses, right? All kind of defense. All of them handling swords, also offense, man. They're going to be able to attack and defend. Wow. A great company. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. See, Libya is still mad about Gaddafi. Or what America did to them with NATO. All of them with shield and helmet. All right, so that's right. So lately, all these nations been pulling closer to Russia. People like Gomer, which would be like France in that area, and all his bands, and the House of Togomar, which would be like Turkey of the North Quarters. All right, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself. See, Russia not only has prepared these other nations by giving them missile defenses like North Korea, Venezuela, Iran, Syria, And all that. So and they preparing themselves for what NATO and America's up to. We're trying to attack them. Prepare for thyself, and be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them, man. So the Lord set up Russia as enough, as being the guard. What you call that? The superpower that's set up against America. All right, this is Sirach 33 and 15. All right, because as America's created, the Lord is going to set up what? A deterrent against them, which would be Russia. All right, just like he raised up Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, the Lord also raised up Cyrus the Great. Just like he raised up Cyrus the Great, he also raised up the Greeks, Alexander. Just like he raised up Alexander, he also raised up the Romans. You know, or he raised up the Maccabees. All right, and after the Hasmonean dynasty, he raised up the Romans. And after the Romans, Esau, he's going to raise up Israel once again, all right, for the last and final straw. So just like he raised up America, you're going to have Russia there as well. All right. Sirach 33 and 15. So look upon all the works of the Most High, and there are two and two, one against another. So the Lord created Russia against America. All right, this is Revelations 9 and 11. And they had a king over them, talking about the Greeks, all right, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. So he was the messenger of death, basically, over there in Europe, all right? Because scriptures speak about Satan's angels and the Lord's angels, all right? Especially going to war in Revelation 12. It says, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue, his name is Apollyon, which means destroyer. Now, he was known as Esau the destroyer, man. But there, this guy, Kaiser Wilhelm, who was speaking about, and it's funny because you'll see him in all his pictures. He got like, you know, the little hand and shit. So he tried to hide it in all his pictures. You'll see that when you look up Kaiser Wilhelm, his left arm and shit like dead. Like a tiny, you know, the tiny hand off a scary movie. My other hand not strong enough. My children were laughing about that the other day. Revelation 9 and 12. So he was known as the person that destroyed Europe, man. Just like Esau is going to be known as the one that destroyed them, you know, their power by their own greed, man. Through their own power, they're going to hang themselves. All right. And digging a ditch that they're going to fall into themselves. All right. So people like Kaiser Wilhelm, this Edomite of Teman, he created something called the turnip winter over there in Germany. They didn't have nothing to eat, no food or nothing, man. They was that destroyed. All right. So yeah, man, that's what we call Apollyon. He was known as the last Kaiser, the last king of Germany. And the next ruler was Hitler. He was a general of the army. So after World War I, all right, from 1914 to 1918, you have World War II, 1939 and 1945. All right, then you had the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the missiles dropping. Said what? One woe is past, and behold, there come two more woes hereafter, man. So it's going to happen. All right, so let's get this real quick. And I want to go 19. I'll probably end it with this. This is I'm at 40 minutes. This is Revelation 19 and 17. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great power. All right, and he's talking about what? those regional wars that's going to happen overseas, especially in Armageddon in the Middle East and over there in Ukraine. It's going to be a great supper for the fowls to eat the flesh of the people. And it's going to be a physical, a real thing, just like the movie Birds. All right, the Lord going to feed the animals, what you would call the unclean birds, which like vultures and shit like that. It says that, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great power, man. And that'd be some scary shit to see. You go over there and go to war, and you look and see all them damn birds waiting to eat somebody that's going to die out there. All right. That ye may eat the flesh of kings and the flesh of captains and the flesh of mighty men. That's right. And the flesh of horses and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. All right. So it's going to be a big feast, man. There's going to be a lot of dead upon the earth. And the Lord has a cleansing process for that. And I saw the beast, to my Nato, and the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. See, that's going to be the new fear and scare tactic to say, hey, we have aliens coming. When it's really Yahushua and his holy angels. All right, Yahweh sending Yahushua. And they're going to try to make war and set up posturing and war against the holy angels, man. Yahushua. Which they're going to lose ultimately. See, NATO is a war machine that's set up for the last days. All right? And they're going to go to war with Russia, but Russia is going to think an evil thought, and they're going to go up to America and go against America and Israel. And then NATO's still going to be around. And the Lord, Yahushua, is going to deal with NATO and deal with the EU. All right? And he's going to also be zapping this place, Babylon. So that's what time we're coming up to. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies. That's going to be a lot. Gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. That's what World War III. In the midst of World War III, you're going to have them try to bring all their nations together. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, talking about the Roman Empire, all right, what you call the Pope. So the beast, all those NATO countries, and the false prophet, all right, that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark, the MOTB. So how did he do that? Through their system. All right, these NATO countries, the bankers, elite bankers, they set up these churches, the media, to push the MOTB. And them that worship the image, that submitted to this system, man, that they're pushing right now. These both were cast into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So that's not talking about America. That's talking about them being burned up themselves. The Lord going to cast, meaning change them into their own personal lake of fire. They're going to be burning their ass up. And also in the kingdom, they're going to be in fire, meaning adversity. All right? So yeah, because the angels pick them up and take them over to America and throw them in the fire, they could. But everything that the beast, the Roman Empire established here in America, everything that the beast established here in America is going to be burned up. All right? And we're cast into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. So the Lord going to bring that brimstone to him. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse. See? All right? They're going to be zapping them with those lasers. With a giant laser beams. which sword proceedeth out of his mouth, meaning out of the front of the chariot, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. Ain't that something, man? So that's the future of NATO. That's what NATO got coming to them by going on the borders of Russia. They're basically setting their demise, man. All right, it's like cause and effect, and energy and motion, the domino effect. Now they got the dominoes going. It's quicker to their end, the end of their power upon this earth, man. So yeah, NATO is looking for a reason to exist as an entity. So they need Russia to be the enemy, and that's what we're witnessing. So yeah, they're posturing up. They got Russia threatening, saying, "Yeah, we're gonna if y'all the talks didn't work, they didn't work. So now Russia's making their next move. What's their next move? Military response. What's that? Technical response. Means they're gonna set up missiles everywhere, just like they did during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. You're gonna start seeing Navy ships, Russian Navy over there near Hawaii, near all the islands that belong to America. You might see some ships over here. They're gonna set up military all around Ukraine. All right, they're gonna set up military in Western Europe, at their doorsteps, at America's doorsteps. So yeah, that's what we should be. That's what's about to happen. Everything gonna be in place. The blessing and the curse. Salvation is at the door, and also the destruction is gonna be waiting for anybody that make that choice. In verse 20, to get the MOTB, and they're still stuck in their idol worship and their falsehood and doubt that Yahweh Hashem Yahushua exists and that he is the true power. All right. So if they doubt that, they're going to get caught up in this shit. And you see the prophecies happening. So it is what it is, man. Kal halayim le'Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Shalom.